tell you stories another way, and mucking around with the string was something that I found interesting. And these stories are about Maui, the magic little boy. And here's my pattern. They're quite hard patterns to do. Here's my pattern for Maui, the magic little boy. You might look at it and you might say, "Hey, Mr. Storyteller, where's Maui's arms?" And I just say to people, well, you can't see his arms because he hasn't got any, because I don't know how to make them. But then I say, he's standing on his side anyway, so you can't see his arms sticking out. And then you might say, "Hey, Mr. Storyteller, he's the skinniest looking little boy I've ever seen. He's as skinny as a piece of string." That's because he is a piece of string. Well, anyway, ka haere tonu au me tēnei kūrākau, I tētahi rangi whakāroa ki a Maui. Oh, me haere atau ki kore te tōku ki a muranga whenua. One day Maui thought, I'm very hungry. I'm going to go and see my grandmother Muriranga Whenua and see if she's got anything to eat. So he walked along the beach, and he huffed and puffed up the mountain, and he slid down the other side, and he hopped and skipped through the forest, on his way to see his grandmother. And when he got to his grandmother's village, his grandmother thought, oh, look, Maui, my magic grandson, is coming to see me. He's a very special little boy. Oh, I better dress up nicely for him. So she put on her two most magic feathers, and there they are, those are her magic feathers. And then she thought, yeah, no, I've really got to dress nicely for Maui. He's a special little magic boy. So then she got into her most magical feather cloak. And she sat, and she waited for Maui. Now, when Maui came, do you know what he said to his grandmother? He said, "Grandma, give me your jawbone." Jawbone? What am I going to ask your grandmother for? I mean, if I said to my grandmother, "Grandma, give me your jawbone," she'd say, "What? Get out of here, you naughty little boy." Slap, boot. But Muriranga Whenua, she thought, he's a magical boy, he's my grandson, I'll give him my jawbone. So she took out her jawbone. And Maui said, good, with that jawbone I can do magic. And he took his grandmother's jawbone and he turned it into a magical fish hook like this. Then do you know what Maui did? He called out to his brothers, "E o kutuakana me haere tātou ki ngā taunga ika, kia tere me haere tātou I nai aturi nei, kia tere me haere tātou ki te hauka." Brothers, we've got to get into our canoe and go out to sea and catch some fish. Now this is a hard pattern, please don't make a lot of noise, it's quite dangerous, I've got to concentrate and get it right. This is Maui's canoe, alright? Here we go, look out. What?
It's not a canoe.
It can't be a cup and saucer. How could that be a cup and saucer? I've never heard of Maui going fishing in a cup and saucer. No. I'm sure this is canoe. And anyway, whatever it is, he sailed around it till he got to the magical fishing ground. And when he got to the magical fishing ground, he said, "Stop! We will fish here." And he took out his line, and on the end of that line, he had the fish hook, the jawbone of Muriranga Whenua. And he let that jawbone, the fish hook, go down into the deepest part of the ocean. And there, lying on the seabed, was a ginormous fish. It was the biggest fish in the whole universe. And oh, that fish looked up and thought, "Oh, that's a tasty hook." And the fish swam up and bit the hook. And Maui, he felt that ginormous fish pulling on the end of his line, and he heaved and strained after Yakitawa to keep the karu off their way. And he pulled that fish right up to the surface of the water. And there that fish turned into the North Island of New Zealand, which is why we call the North Island Te Ika a Maui. And that's where Maui's canoe, well, that turned into the South Island, and that's why we call the South Island Te Waka a Maui, the great canoe of Maui. Now, Maui was just a young boy, about the age of some of you young guys. Now one day Maui thought, "Where's my dad? I've never met my dad, and I've never talked to my dad. I'd love to meet my dad and talk to my dad. Oh no, I'll go and see my mother Tauranga and see what she's got to say about this." So he went to see his mother Tauranga and he said, "Hey Mum, where's my dad?" "Oh,
boys have got dads. Where's my dad? I'd really like to meet my dad and talk with my dad. And Maui, by the time I said, Maui, no! You can never ever meet your father or talk to your father, because your father lives a long, long way away from here in the underworld. But Maui thought, so what? My dad lives in the underworld. I imagine I'll just fly off and see him. So Maui, he turned himself into a rather beautiful looking. There we go.
Yeah.
That's right, a butterfly. And he flew off over the sea and sky and down into the underworld. Hey, I fooled you. I thought you people knew the Maui story. Huh? Maui didn't turn himself into a butterfly. He turned himself into a bird. A big, fat, juicy canada. And here it is, a big, fat, juicy pigeon. And he flew off over the sea and sky and down into the underworld. And there in the underworld was a milo tree. And seated beneath the milo tree was Makia Tutara, Maui's father. And Makia Tutara looked up and saw this rather tasty looking pigeon and he said, "And oh, Manu, not about. Bird, you keep still, because I'm going to come and catch you and eat you for my breakfast." But every time he tried to catch the bird flew away. And then at last, Makia Tutara knew that this was no ordinary pigeon. Then Maui flew down to the tree and landed in front of his father and turned himself back into a little boy. And then Makia Tutara and Maui, the first thing they did was have a hug. And then they had a hongi. And then they wept many, many tears. And when Maui and his father had cried out all their sadness, so all their teardrops dried up like this. Maui thought a lot that he said, "Dad, I can't stay here. I've got to go back to the world above." So he flew back to the world above. Now, you know, in those days there's a lot of magic. But it was funny magic. I mean, sometimes the sun would come up, look around, and go racing across the sky faster than a racing car. And then it would go down, and then little boys would get up in the morning. They'd be just about to get out of bed, and they wouldn't even have put their foot on the ground, and the sun would come up, go racing across the sky, and go down before those little boys even put their foot on the ground. They'd have to pick their foot up, put it back into bed, pull the blankets back up, and go back to sleep before they even got out of bed. And then the next morning, the sun would come up, and he would creep and crawl across the sky, and take about 100 years to get from one side of the sky to the other. And little boys would wake up in the morning, and by the time that sun was going down, those little boys would be old men with beards about 20 feet long. Now, all those old people, they got really, really angry, and they said, "Hey, Maui, me karanga koe ki o tuakara, kia haere atu koutou si kura kia tamanutara. Maui, you call out to your brothers, and you go out and you tell the sun to behave." So Maui called out to his brothers, and they got to Maui's magical canoe. Now, this really is a canoe. This is called a wakatoa. This is a war canoe. You don't muck around with people when they're in a war canoe. You get out of their road. And Maui sailed across the sea and sky, and when he got to the place where the sun comes up, he said, "Stop!" And he took out his magical nets and lines. And when the sun came up, he threw his nets and lines over the sun and caught the sun like this. Then do you know what Maui did? Boom! Here goes that sun in jolly good hiding. And he said, "Sun, from now on, you go across the sky at the right speed. Never too fast, never too slow. Across the sky thou must go." And that's why to this day, you watch. The sun comes up, and across the sky he does go. Never too fast, never too slow. Show you again. Up the sun does come, and across the sky the sun does go, never too fast, never too slow. And it's because of Maui, my ancestor, the magical little boy from my tribe of Ngāti Porou, the only people cheeky enough to tell the sun where it goes. So up the sun, and you know what? I am the most powerful storyteller in the world. I'm the only storyteller that can do this. I look at the sun, and I think, if the sun isn't doing a job or smiling and making people happy, I say to the sun, Sun, you go back. And I tell the sun to go back. And I send the sun back. And I tell him to start the day again. And I send the sun right back down below the sea. And then I say to the sun, right sun, you come up with a smile on your dial. And you make people happy today. That's why I always have a good day. And I know you're such bright people. I'm going to show you how to do that magical trick. But I'm only going to show you once. Okay? So I know that you people in Christchurch are bright. I only have to show you once. And here's how we go, okay? Got it?